Welcome to the Love Rekindled Show, where real stories, heartfelt advice, and expert guidance come together to help you create richer, more meaningful relationships. Meet your certified relationship coaches, Margot and Antonio Taylor. Through transformative coaching, informative workshops, and special events, the Love Rekindled community empowers families and couples to grow closer, communicate openly, and embrace the power of love. This is the Love Rekindled Show. Let's begin.
No more situationships. How to date with purpose. So today we're going to be breaking free from confusion and dating with clarity. We have an amazing guest here with us today. We have Tre Amazing, and we want to say welcome to the Love Rekindled Show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Tre, thank you for coming. I got to do this, baby. You got like 3 different names that you've known about. Come on, give it to me, man. Go ahead and tell me, man.
Well, I mean, I got one name, but I got many titles. So the people that know me, my audience, they know, I'm a part-time stripper, part-time pastor, but I am a full-time dating commentator. And so I like to liken it like, there's the Clark Kent version of me, but there's also the Superman, which, the dating commentator, that's my Superman, persona.
Oh, this is going to be good.
We love that, Tre. Thank you so much for joining us. So you're known in Atlanta as the dating commentator. So let us know, what is that? What do you do? How did you get that name?
Well, I've been in the genre of, dating, relationships, marriage, sex, kink, and fetish for over a decade.
Okay.
So it's a genre that I thrive in. I find a lot of interest in. And, I've been introduced, once or twice on the radio as a relationship expert, which I kind of walk away from that because, I don't have an educational background in this or anything like that. So I kind of steer clear of a relationship expert, but this is something I like to talk about. So I came up with this. I'm actually the first one to come up with dating commentator. Mm-hmm. And I came up with that because the same way you watch the news, you have political commentators.
Right.
You watch ESPN, you have sports commentators. Mm-hmm. Well, same thing.
Cool.
I just comment on, the nuances of dating, singlehood, sex, marriage, so on and so forth.
Okay, cool. So that's really neat. So what are your stance? What are your thoughts about situationships? Because, of course, we're here in Atlanta, and we know that it's a lot of things that happen on the dating scene. So situationships is something that we're coming across a lot lately. Mm-hmm. So what's your thoughts about situationships?
You're going to have a lot of men and women who avail themselves of situationships because they feel like, well, if I'm in a situationship, it's my way of getting the best while mitigating the risks, risks of heartbreak, risks of, all the nastiness that come with bad breakups, bad relationships. They feel like, well, I have this person that I'm attracted to.
Right.
There's a mutual attraction. We can have the benefits of a relationship. We can go out, we can go to Cheesecake Factory, have, be intimate, but we don't have titles. You can go do your thing. I can do my thing. And for some people, they feel like that's their way of, freeing themselves from emotional attachments, so on and so forth. It doesn't always work. Because you can be in a situationship and still fall for that person.
Yeah. Right. And so this is something that we realize that, this is real big on the dating scene these days. Nobody wants to be locked in. Everybody wants their cake and ice cream and eat it too. So what is the downside to situationships that you've in your space that you've noticed?
Well, it depends on what that person or those people are looking for. Some people use a situationship as, just a placeholder until they find what they really, or who or what they really want.
Correct.
They may be looking for marriage, they may be looking for courtship, but they don't have that right now. So this is a place filler. This is someone to fill the gaps. Now, what can go wrong, as often it has, is you could end up, the situationship can end up blocking you from meeting that person that is probably a better fit and maybe more in alignment with what you're looking for, long term. Maybe you really want marriage. Right. This situationship could be holding you back.
I agree with you with that. Yeah. I agree with you because, of course, if you're intentionally wanting to find your person and you got a situationship going on, you distracted. Mm-hmm. So you really don't have the time to really put the effort into anything new or to be open for something new. So in my thought process, I feel like a lot of times, and really just depending on where you at in your life, situationships can be a waste of time, for real.
They can
sometimes. But if you're just in that space where you want to have fun, it's all good. But the problem is that at some point, everybody wants that partner, you know, and you may have some people that feel like, hey, I want to date, I don't want to commit, but at some point, whether you get older or whatever the situation is, everyone wants their person. So my question to you is that when you have been out there in situationships, I talk to a lot of, you know, daters and single people about being the right person, not so much finding the right person. Who are you? And making sure that you're attracting the things that you want. So what's your advice to people if they're in a situationship and trying to figure things out, to do things different, to be real and intentional about a real relationship?
If a real relationship is what you ultimately want, then you need to plan your exodus out of the situationship.
Right.
Because again, just like we talked about, it can be a distraction. If what you're looking for is something more substantive, you know, a courtship that will lead to a marriage, more intentional dating, this situationship could be a hazard, could be something that this may not be the fit for you, because a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this, I've been in situationships, you know, I said ships meaning plural. Emotions are not mechanical. They're not like a light switch.
Can't turn them off and on.
Right.
That's true.
And for a lot of people, you find yourself in this situationship. Well, you're not who I want to be, you know, with, but there's a placeholder. But either you or the other person, or sometimes both, can end up falling for the other person.
Yeah.
That's true.
And you may be falling for someone who may not be the best fit for you long term.
I agree.
And that leads to my question. As I'm sitting here listening to you speak about it, I would think it'll work good if both people want the situationship. Let's say if we both agree to, I think it'll work well. I think it becomes a problem when I want it, but you really don't want it.
Right, but sometimes, like Tre was saying, well, sometimes what emotions can happen. You know, you can get, like you say, your emotions are not like a light switch. So you can very well get into a situationship and get into that space and realize, or gain feelings for someone, even though they may not be good for you long term. But those emotions are there. Those ties are there. So that can definitely be a problem.
Yeah, I can see that being a train wreck. It's almost like dating without purpose. It's
Right,
like
it can
tripping
almost
with no
be
map.
toxic.
And you just
something.
you trying to go Miami, you end up in New York.
Correct.
If you're not dating,
you're out there, you know, you're trying to mimic. You know, it's like relationship zero, or, you know, beyond relationship. It's like you're trying to look like a relationship, but it's not really a relationship. You're just out there in the ether. And when I think about I'm not going to say how many situations I've been in, but when I think about them, I know they both ended in disaster. You know, one ended where, you know, we both started off like, okay, this is what it is.
Well, let me ask you this, Tre, really quick. So they both were at the same time. You had situationships. No. Oh, they was different times.
Different times.
No, baby, you being a little messy.
No, definitely not at the same time.
I got you back, Tre.
Thank you. Trying to hit me up on camera.
I'm asking for the people in the back. I'm sure somebody was sitting listening, thinking what I was thinking.
They think, what kind of administrative thing I got going on?
I mean, you did say you was a pastor, a part-time stripper.
Sometimes I get the roles confused and show up at church in my G-string, but it's all good.
Just make it happen.
You know, for me, you know, both times, and they were the different phases of my life. You know, one time it ended because I ended up catching feelings, and the other time the woman caught feelings.
Yeah.
You know, in both situationships, start off, okay, this is what it is. We're just going to do this and third. But if you want to go out with different men, I'm going to go out with different women. It's all good. Shake on at the very beginning. A year or so later, why you doing it? Why didn't you call me?
I was going to say that. So how do you navigate that when the situationship goes bad?
At that point, you need to just recognize, look, we need to be mature and figure out, how did we get here and how do we work around this? Or, you know, we have to maybe just come to the table and realize we may have run this course.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tre, I got a good question for you, and just give me a real answer.
Okay.
My thing is, do you think situationships are good to have, or you think situationships, yes or no, from your viewpoint?
I think he answered it. I think he said depending on the situation.
He's been in situationships before, right? But now in this space, looking back and saying, would you involve yourself in situationships?
Now, no.
Now. Why
at
not?
This point now, but I'm also now at 45, almost 46, I wouldn't, because regardless of everything going on in the dating space and whatnot, marriage commitment is still something I want.
Got it.
What I want to do, and this is with anything, with any goal of mine, anything, overarching, I want to mitigate any distractions, anything that may, impede where I'm trying to go.
Yeah.
A situationship may be fun. It may start off, the
Situationships are always fun. I can imagine
fun.
at first because it's no ties. So y'all just
ties.
having a good time.
We're just having a good time. But ultimately, if this is not what I want, or if you're not what I want, then how am I going to feel if the woman out there I really want to be with, if this stops that from happening? Yeah. Then how I'm going to feel? But I mean, at this space now, I wouldn't do it. Back in my 20s, I thought it was the magic bullet. I thought, okay, why isn't everybody doing this?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so now you're at a place where you're figuring out, you're at that place where you know what you want.
Right.
And so you're like, okay, the situationships now don't
no longer
serve me. So let me ask you this, being a dating commentator here in Atlanta, I'm sure you had a lot to talk about, but what can you say is one of the biggest issues with the dating scene today?
A big problem, and some people may argue this, but I do think that we underestimate how much social media affects dating.
Agreed.
Social media has a major effect on how people view things. Subconsciously, we don't realize how we view the opposite sex, or the criteria that we deem acceptable for a suitable mate is influenced by what all the opinions on social media, all the different trends and the hashtags, and people distorting the English language, things like 50-50 and alpha, beta, what's effeminate, what's sassy, all that stuff. People are taking these things that some influencer put out there, and now they're applying it to their real life.
Yeah, that's the dangers of social media.
And I think the thing that make it dangerous by them applying it to the real life, they have no tools to even navigate it once it's being applied. So they trying to do all these things that they see, but they have no tools to even navigate it.
Well, the thing is, if you're applying things that you're seeing on social media, that's not true to who you are authentically.
Absolutely.
And that can always be a train wreck. I do agree with you when you talk about social media, because social media impacts almost everything that we do on a daily basis. Relationships, it impacts work. I heard a conversation about someone's job, looked up their stuff and, questioning about stuff. So social media weighs heavy, especially when your job and companies now are determining whether they want to hire you based on the content that you're putting out. So it definitely holds a lot of weight. So when you talk about the social media effect on the dating scene, talking about them seeing things that they may want and getting the false notion of what a relationship is or what people are showing. My question to you is, what advice do you have for those single people who are out there and are being impressed by what they're seeing or letting what they see on social media guide them?
Absolutely. Social media is not real. You have to use some discernment. You also have to understand that the algorithm is something out of this world. Right. Because there are a lot of things, a lot of content that people put out there on social media that, even in the space of dating and relationships, people, again, like I use examples, 50-50, struggle love, alpha, beta, feminine, all these terms and all these things, even though these are real terms, they're being distorted by influencers who are now affecting the algorithm, and now they're appearing in all these relationship groups, on all these hashtags, and people have distorted the English language. Well, even in the 50-50 conversation, people distorted actual mathematics, and now it's affecting the potential of actually finding someone that they may really, want to be with long term. Yeah. And so people don't realize, while you're trying to be in alignment with, what social media is saying, what you should do, or what's popular, or what your favorite influencer is stating, this may be, derailing you from ultimately what you're looking for. If you're looking for someone authentic, if you're looking for something long-term, something of substance, social media may not be the altar you want to bow to, to ultimately get what you want.
So when you're talking to a single person about dating, and you're saying, you know what, guess what, social media ain't it. It's not the Bible, it's not the relationship coach, it's not it. What do you advise that people who are intentionally dating and looking for their real connection do outside of the social media thing that you feel like that's the biggest problem? What things that they should do? And outside of making a list of things that they want, what do you advise people who are single and really looking for a real connection?
So if you're single, and let's say you're single and you do find somebody, you know, you may be at the beginning stages of dating, courtship, whatever, then you and your partner need to realize your hands are on the wheel.
Right.
Your hand, both your hand, not the people on social media, not the influencers, not your friends. You know, what you constitute, what your blueprint is, does not need validation.
Right.
Doesn't need to be, you know, popular with, you know, whatever is going on in the zeitgeist in the mainstream. If you and your partner decide, look, this is how our relationship is going to look, this is how it's going to operate, function, is based on our interests, based on ultimately where we want to be, then that's the path you take.
Yeah.
Don't let social media tell you, well, no, you're not a man if you do this, or you're not a real lady. You're being thirsty. You're being a pick-me, or you're being a simp. If this works for you and your partner,
it works.
That works.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you bringing that point up, because I think our listeners and people need to know that when you're out here and you're dating, it's things that you just have to pay attention to.
Yeah. And that's something me and Margaret, we tell people all the time. What works for us may not work for you.
Correct.
Right.
And it's all about safeguarding your relationship. And like you said, Tre, do what's best for you.
Do what's best for you.
Just do what's best for you.
So let me ask you this. What are your views on, because you mentioned that, you know, and of course, it's a lot of big topics that are out there on social media, the 50-50, the alpha female versus the alpha male.
There's going to be some more coming out.
Right,
Absolutely.
right. And
more.
we've indulged in all of those things. When it comes to relationships in like the dating space, I want to ask you your opinion, because Antonio and I kind of talked about this. What do you think about the whole balloon pop situation?
Oh, man.
With the dating, because that's something that people are doing. That's something that's huge. People love to look at it. So what's your thoughts about dating or doing the singles, looking for people and popping balloons? What's your thoughts about that?
The effectiveness of it.
The effectiveness, you know, and it pops up on my timeline pretty much daily.
Yes.
And it didn't get picked up for a show or
It
something
did.
like
It's
that.
on Netflix.
So Netflix. You know, when my girl and I, we watch it, we're like, wow, we can't believe sometimes how shallow people. I mean, this is, I do think, and I would, you know, explain to anyone, you know, that show is very much emblematic of how a lot of people are creating their metrics for what they feel is a suitable partner. You know, people are popping their balloons. It's extremely shallow.
Yes.
The reasons why. Okay, so why did you pop your balloon? Well, it seemed like a nice person, but you just seem too quiet. You seem like someone who is too mature for me, or I'm like, okay, is that a bad thing?
I'm not gonna lie, Tre, it's sad to watch.
Yeah,
it really is.
Especially like as a certified coach, and you know certain things, and when you hear it, and I'm gonna call it what it, when you hear this foolishness, it's really like, man, you like cringe. Like, are you serious?
Right.
So
I think the balloon popping situation gives us a blueprint for where we are in the dating scene. What's happening?
This is what's going on.
This is what's going on. And when you look around, it's like, it's sad, but it's true. Everybody wants what they want. Nobody's really looking in depth about, you know, certain characteristics. Is what you look like, what I feel when I see you. Everything is so superficial. And I think ultimately it's positioning our relationships and marriages for to be surface and a real undertaking to really last the test of time, because you're really getting with someone based on what you see or what you assume they have or qualities. You're not really taking the time to get to know them. But then it also translates onto social media. Yeah. No one's looking for in-depth relationships. Everybody's looking for what I like was fun, and if it doesn't make me happy, I don't want it.
Right. There's no substance. You know, what was amazing to me when I first started watching the balloon pop, at first, even though it was cringeworthy at first, I'm thinking, well, they're just young. You know, they got some growing to do. And then I started watching them. I'm like, did she just say she's 40 years old?
Absolutely.
And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. They're in my age bracket now. Wait a minute. These are 40-plus-year-old people making these decisions based on, you know,
walking in the room.
Oh, his shoe has a scuff on it, so he's not a clean person. Or I'm like, you know, little things like that. So it can be very cringeworthy, but like, you know, it's very much where we are and what people are dealing with.
And one thing I definitely want to say, we built this platform to counter foolishness like that.
Right.
So I do want to say it is people that have done work on themselves. It is people that are really intentionally dating. It is people that really have done the work and ready to seriously date. And I think it's just so unfair that we are forced to watch that, because it can be very, 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 like you almost let the out of people when they have to see that. I could not imagine being a single man, and that's what I have to look at. I have to say, these are the women that I have to pick from. It can be very discouraging. So I want people to know it is people out there that are doing the work. That's not the only people out here that's on that foolishness. It is some people that are really serious about dating as well.
So Tre, my question I want to ask is that when you're out here and you're watching these relationships and these single people find their way, what do you think about? Because I think a lot of times in relationships, especially when people get in shallow situations, there are no real boundaries, right? There are no real boundaries in the relationship as to, what's accepted, what's not. It's a lot of conversations that go unspoken in relationships. So what's your thoughts on boundaries, like in these days in the dating scene that you're noticing?
Well, the absence of boundaries just means you're going to deal with a lot of disappointments. You're going to have some arguments. You're going to have some misunderstandings.
Right.
Boundaries, if we use them correctly, they serve as guardrails.
Yeah.
They can't say, like, look, this is, within these confines, this is how I operate. This is what I want. Outside of this is where you lose me. This is where, okay, this is not healthy.
Right.
Not healthy for me, not healthy for us. So, and that comes with maturity. For a lot of people, including myself, a lot of things that I know and I learned, I can be the poster boy for saying, look, I learned it the hard way. What did Jay-Z say? Jay-Z said, Hove did that.
Yeah.
So hopefully none of y'all have to go through that.
Right.
Well, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
Got
So
it.
I made a lot of mistakes where, I've been in relationships and even situationships, didn't set boundaries, tried to be nonchalant, go with the flow, what do you want to do? Or what do you want to do? And then realize, okay, we're setting ourselves up for failure.
Right.
And that inevitably it always happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Either I got upset or upset. Well, why didn't you do this? I would think someone, you would know to do this.
Yeah.
I never put that as a boundary. I never said anything.
And as we tapping into the intentional daters, what we're realizing as we coaching couples, the married couples, we realized had we caught it when they was dating to setting boundaries.
That's right.
A lot of them wouldn't even be sitting with us. So as we introducing the intentional daters to our platform, that's something that we're very big on, trying to teach them to set boundaries.
Right.
Because what we realize in relationship, it go left because they started it with no boundaries.
No
there was no real
boundaries.
foundation and there's no boundaries.
And I do want to say, I'd be remiss if I, didn't bring up the fact that, with me and other observations, no boundaries means people are assuming. You're
Right.
assuming this other grown, mature person knows what you knows and believes the exact same thing. Case in point, one topic about not setting boundaries when you talk about infidelity, people think you get in a relationship, well, cheating just means don't sleep around with somebody else
Right.
other than me. Don't be intimate. For some people, and you'd be surprised the depth that people go to, infidelity for some means don't look at pornography.
Right.
Don't masturbate.
Right.
Don't go around liking other pictures.
Right.
Well, we didn't talk about that. You didn't tell me that.
Unspoken expectations.
Yeah. Unspoken expectation, and it always leads to disappointment. Then you need to say that at the beginning.
Yeah.
You need to tell that person, look, now that we're in a relationship,
Right.
we have a title. I got this title. You got this title.
These are our expectations.
These are my expectations. I don't want to see you liking nobody half naked picture. I want to see you following,
Right.
certain people on Instagram. You have to say that. You have to put that out there and be plain. Speak their language.
Right.
Because if not, disappointment is right down the street.
I think that's amazing.
I think it's
you
next
touching
door.
on that.
I don't even think it's all the way down the street.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the thing is that if you don't set those boundaries, man, you really setting yourself up for failure. So Tre, I want to ask you, since you're the commentator here in Atlanta, there's a real prominent couple, and I'm sure we all kind of have heard of them here in Atlanta.
On a
and
reality
they're on
show.
a reality show.
On a popular reality show.
On a popular reality show. And so we were recently talking about boundaries and infidelity and all those things. And so it appears that there are not many boundaries in a relationship, but it's coming out that, he's definitely been a known cheater forever. But now, it's really getting bad. They're finding out he's having other children. There's outside baby mamas that he is still dealing with, and he's making a complete fool of his wife on the platform. So my question to you is that talking about boundaries and infidelity and things of that, how do you think that affects our community with people seeing that? Because we have half of our community supporting her, girl, stand by your man, even though he's doing all of this crazy stuff. And then you have women like myself that's saying, what's going on? Why is this happening? And why are we even looking at this? This is crazy.
What we're doing, and, consciously or subconsciously, however you want to frame it, only thing we're doing is we're just normalizing it. We're getting to the point where we're normalizing or telling people this is what to be expected in a relationship, or this is what you should expect and also accept and tolerate. Now, if we're talking about the same couple that I'm thinking about in my mind, I ain't named no names.
I'm sure we are. I'm sure we're talking about.
Yeah, people know I ain't no snitch. But if we're talking about the same couple, I haven't watched this show in years. Mm-hmm. But even years ago, when I was watching it, this guy was a known cheater.
Right.
So it got to the point where, okay, if this is, fast forward all these years later, I'm looking at the wife like, victim, you're a volunteer at this point.
Correct.
Yeah. Because you can leave.
Right.
I am someone that, if they're, you say you take the marital vows, for better or worse, sickness and health, all that stuff, and you are promising fidelity. I do understand that there are issues that can be worked out, but when someone's repeating these patterns of behavior,
right,
ongoing, what you're doing, they're teaching you, this is me,
acceptable.
this is acceptable.
Yeah. And I think for me, what bothers me the most with it, not that I got a heaven and hell to put nobody in, but I just feel like why are we still watching this? And I just feel like in this day and age, the way marriages and relationships are under attack, we're glorifying this, and they've been on television for many years, probably about 15 plus years. Yeah. And they're still, this is something, again, pulling it back into our point with social media. This is the stuff that our children are watching. Yeah. These are the things that people who are dating watching and feeling, and like you say, normalizing this behavior. And it's so scary. Yeah. To think that people are really normalizing and feeling like, this kind of stuff happens.
Yeah, I think to your point as well, the reason why we still watching it, because like you said, Tre, it had became normal now. We have normalized, and let's be real, drama sells.
Drama sales.
Nobody want to hear about the pastor taking care of his kids and doing all the great things in life. Nobody want to hear what LeBron James is doing.
I know, but I guess the sad part for me is just how it affects our future. As a community, as people, our young women are watching this. Our young men are watching this behavior.
The producers of these shows, they don't care about that. Entertainment brings engagement.
That's it.
Right. It doesn't matter how it's affecting today's children, tomorrow's children, next year's children. It doesn't matter, because at the beginning of this particular show, you got to think about how many today's daters were children back then at the very beginning, and now they're grown adults dating. And what saddens me, and I just to come across the chatter on social media and meeting so many women who just expect all men to cheat.
Yes.
I've come across that, I got to be honest, several times from women. They just outright admit all men cheat. And me, myself, anybody that follows, my channel and been following, my space, not the MySpace, but the genre I've been in, I'm real big on fidelity.
Yeah.
I'm real big on, I keep my heart, my part at home.
Yeah.
I don't believe in infidelity in any situation. And so it kills me when I meet young ladies or I see comments on social media where women feel like no matter what man you meet, ladies, you just need to accept the fact he's going to cheat. Well, and I'm like, we shouldn't be normalizing this.
And you know what? I totally agree with your point. And I can really just have a real transparent moment. I grew up in Miami. So I'm originally from Miami, Florida. So Dade County.
Man.
305 in the building. Yeah. But the thing is that growing up, I was pretty much raised to understand and normalize the fact that men are going to cheat, right? Growing up in Miami is a really small city, and, your person can be sleeping with two women in the city and everybody knows about it, but no one's going to talk about it, right? So growing up in that environment, you can almost live in a house with someone and you guys could be going out to a club to the same place, and you drive separate cars.
So imagine. So when I met her, it's day and night from Georgia to Florida, Atlanta, Miami, day and night.
Right.
So when she telling me these things like, I expect men to see. I'm like, what?
Because the thing is that I was raised that long as he take care of the house, long as he pay the bills, do what he need to do by these kids, you can't worry about what he doing in those streets, right? So when you're raised that way, you have that mentality, right? So when I met Antonio, my thing is, I started to mature as a woman though, and I wanted different for myself, but just didn't really know what that would look like, right? But when I met Antonio, my thing to him was, all men cheat. That's what y'all do. And his thing was, Margot, that's not true. If we find the right person, and we find, that person that we are attracted to and love and can and grow with, all men don't do that. But unfortunately for me, that's how I was raised. And so now looking back, because of course I've grown, I've been here in Atlanta 20 years. But looking back, when I go back home, all the women still feel the same. They feel like men gonna cheat, they gonna do what they gonna do, just go on their hat and make sure he pay the bills. And that is just so sad. Coming out of that and growing from that, but looking back and everybody is still stuck.
Yeah, and I can say at that particular moment, I was highly offended because I have been a cheater before. I have been all of those things. But now I'm at a place where I don't want to be that. You're not finna tell me that's what I'm doing. I don't want to do that anymore. So I can be faithful. It's things I can do. So
that's actually was the turning point in our relationship, because I think I had gotten to a space in my life where I was ready to really just be in a committed relationship, but I wanted to like my person and be into them. And I think for so long I dated for circumstances, for whatever the situation was, whether it was that I had a child from you, or whether you can support me in some way or shape or form. And so I had to get to a space where I wanted more. I wanted more substance in my relationship. And so
you deserve more substance.
Absolutely.
You have to tell yourself, I deserve more.
Absolutely. But Tre, honestly, that just came with me maturing as a woman and just understanding what I deserve and what I wanted. And that was just what I had to go through to get there. But to your point, that whole men cheat thing is something that is very real. In real time, and you have to just understand your self-worth and what you deserve.
And for a lot of women who feel this way, they wake up and go to bed thinking all men do this, all men are culpable of infidelity, then it begins to shape their mentality and how they view us.
Correct.
Because like you said, you do have those women that feel like, well, as long as he's paying all my bills, I don't offer anything, getting my hair and nails done, then it's whatever.
Right.
And, for a lot of women, that becomes the motivation. It's not about love, companionship, anything. It's like, he's paying the bills.
But when you do that, though, Tre, you neglect so much of yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the
reality of it is,
what is your commitment can really be to me if you know or expect me not to be fully committed to you?
No commitment, honestly.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
so
no commitment. My thing is, you're not committed to
me.
me, I'm not committed to you. And maybe I should have put that under a situationship, right? Because that's what I was having, a whole situationship with a fake title.
It becomes, what you have in that, it becomes just functional toxicity.
True.
That's all it is.
True.
We both understand we ain't ish.
Right.
But, you're getting something out of this, I'm getting something out of it, and we're just going to keep this facade going.
And it's so sad because you will sit in that position when you don't know better. You have children, you bring all kind of other things.
That's the problem, because you start creating kids and family, and now you passing along the toxicity. That is the real problem.
Well, in addition to passing on toxicity, you're also, and I'm taking my dating commentator hat off and putting my public health hat on, you're also passing on STDs.
Yes.
I've been in public health for over 20 years. I've had the experience, I definitely have the experience of meeting women who found out they were HIV positive. Why? Because their man cheated.
Wow.
And it's not always cheating with, other men, cheating with women, men and women.
Yeah.
And so you do have women who will be in these situations knowing good and well he's out there philandering.
Right.
But as long as you're paying the bills, stick with him. Don't realize you're putting yourself
at danger.
Putting yourself in danger.
Because when you accept that, you got to accept everything that come with it. You just can't accept part of it. And a lot come with it.
A lot come with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's some good information. I appreciate you sharing that, because that is also another thing that happens in our community, that whole all men cheat. And also then it kind of, and that's a whole nother topic for another day, but it positions why the respect is less for our men in our community and things like that, because how we've been taught. in what we're seeing and what we're accepting. And I think that's one of the things that we definitely brought forward in this conversation. So talking about situationships was fun. It was good. It was informative because so many people put themselves in situations, right? You get in these relationships, you like each other, you have the connection, the physical and emotional connection, but you have no real meaning behind the relationship. You have no real substance and purpose. And so today we were having this conversation where we were talking about situationships and also talking to you about how to intentionally date and to date with purpose. So we're super excited that we had our amazing guest on today, Tre the Amazing. And so Tre, could you tell our audience how could they find you?
How can they find the stripper?
Oh, well, the stripper, that's a different phone number, That's
different contact information.
I'll put my OnlyFans on. I'll put you on there later. But if you're on Instagram, you can find me at the Dating Commentator. Or also TikTok. So both TikTok and Instagram at the Dating Commentator. I recommend everyone, if you can, please support my YouTube channel. Visit www.youtube.com/Ringside LLC. Ringside is the name of my organization. Visit Ringside LLC. Subscribe to the channel. My channel is devoted to interviewing up and coming as well as established Atlanta influencers. Case in point, about topics sailing in our community regarding singlehood, dating, marriage, sex, kink, and fetish. So support the channel, subscribe, drop some comments, follow, like. But yes, that's how you can find me.
Yeah, and I can say this, Margo and I, guys, we had an opportunity to be on his platform a couple of weeks ago. Good information. So we really appreciate you reaching out to us. Thank you for also sharing our platform with us, Tre. It means a lot to us.
Thank you.
So make sure you guys go to YouTube and subscribe to his channel and check out our interview. Antonio and I are on there as relationship coaches, and we're talking about social media, okay, and all the things that happen in the dating industry, in the dating world with social media. And so, Tre, we want to say thank you so much for joining us. It was amazing. We talked about all the things. Tre is the Dating Commentator. Okay?
Was that amazing?
Yes, amazing. We
and Tre an expert, no matter what he says. Yes, he's an expert.
And drop some great jewels. So thank you so much for joining us on this powerful episode of the Love Rekindled Show. We hope you were inspired, encouraged, and reminded that real love takes real work, and it's always worth it. A special thank you to our sponsor, Platinum Luxury Fleet, your premium black car service, luxury transportation, whether it's a date night, corporate event, or a red carpet arrival. Platinum Luxury Fleet gets you there in style and comfort, okay? So visit their website, platinumluxuryfleet.com, to book your next experience. And until next time, keep loving, keep growing, and remember, healing starts at home, and the Love Rekindle is here to walk with you every step of the way. And we'll see you all next episode.
Thank
see
you
next time.
Take care.